Hello everyone and welcome to a really awesome game that just happened in the European Online Club Cup playoffs. It was suggested to me on Twitter, so very happy about that. It's Shakhriyar Mamedyarov versus Vassily Ivanchuk, and we haven't had a game not either of them. We had a few games by Mamedyarov, but we haven't had a game by good old Chucky for quite a while now. So I'm very happy that this game occurred, and without further ado, let's check it out and see why it's such a nice game. So Mamedyarov with the white pieces opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, g6, going for a king's Indian defense setup, knight to f3, and bishop to g7. So a nice king's Indian defense. We have e3, and Vassily immediately castles. Sorry, e3 and castles. And also, sorry about the previous video. I've seen a lot of you mention that there are some weird noises in the background. I couldn't hear any, but this is already the second time that it happened, like in a few months. And I think the reason why I can't hear it is because I never use headphones. I'm pretty sure maybe it's something that only headphone users hear, but I couldn't figure out what it was. So well, either way, sorry about that. I have no idea how that happened. Like you guys were mentioning, like there was some sort of a video playing in the background. I checked, like there were no videos playing in the background. Maybe something was playing in the background and then it came to a stop, and then I couldn't figure out what it was. Either way, I checked now. I'm pretty sure there's nothing playing in the background. So here we have castles, and now bishop to e2. Mamedyarov now ready to castle also. We have b6. Now Vassily also wants to get his light square bishop to this long diagonal. And here we have castles. Bishop b7, and now queen to c2. We have e6 and now b4. And interestingly, in 2019 in the Superbet Bucharest Rapid tournament, Mamedyarov already had this position with the white pieces against Vladislav Artemiev, and that game ended in a draw. And in that game, queen to e7 was played. However, here Vassily goes for d6. It's a new move, so already as of move 8, we have a completely new game. It's hard to say if Vassily knew of this game and then prepared something extra for Mamedyarov, or is it just a coincidence, but it's hard to say. I tend to think it's not a coincidence. So here, bishop to b2, continuing development, and knight b to d7. Now preparing to strike here with c5. We have knight to c3, and now the immediate c5. Why not? You want to open up some files, so you have to develop the queen, bring the rooks to the open files. We have d captures on c5, d captures, and now b5. Mamedyarov closes off the queen side, and now he wants to bring, of course, his rooks to the d file, maybe even double up if possible. So knight to e4. Vassily uses a trick here to trade off some pieces, and the problem is the bishop on b2 will be undefended. If you go for something like knight captures on e4, then we're just going to see bishop captures, and well, the queen is under attack, so you'd have to capture it, queen captures, and then bishop captures here. And the black would be perfectly fine. Black would retreat with the bishop to g7, and everything would be perfectly fine. So here, Mamedyarov takes this opportunity to play a4, just strengthening the position on the queen side, and the queen to c7. Now Vassily also wants to bring his rooks over to the open d file. We have rook f to d1, and now rook f to d8. We have h3, making some breathing room for the king here, and now knight to e5. And here, these knights are now deadly, and you have to do something about that. You can't just let your opponent's knights, enjoy themselves like this in the center of the board. So knight captures on e4. Seems like winning a piece, but not really, because this tension still exists. So bishop captures, attacking Mamedyarov's queen, queen captures, and now knight captures on f3 comes with check. So bishop captures, and finally we eliminated that annoying bishop on b2, bishop captures on b2. We have rook 8 to b1, and now you have to be careful in positions like these, especially when you're playing the games, because there's this thing called automatic reply or automatic capture. When someone attacks your piece, or someone captures your piece, you don't want to always just recapture, or if someone attacks your piece, don't just retreat. Always look for that nice zwischenzug, that in-between move that could turn the tide in your favor. Because here, if you just go back, which does make sense, for example, bishop to g7, you might run into something like queen captures on a8, just grabbing two rooks for the queen, and here black is close to lost, if not lost. There's really no counterplay here for black. All of these pawns are on light squares. You have a dark square bishop. Once white doubles up rooks on the d file, it's just game over. There's really no counterplay here for black. So you have to be careful of things like that, and of course Vassily is. He plays rook captures on d1 with check. We have rook captures, and now rook to d8, trying to switch off the remaining rook. We have rook captures, queen captures, and now queen to b7. Mamedyarov says your a7 pawn is not defended, and there is no way for you to defend it, so I'm just going to capture it. And if you notice, we have bishops of opposite colors, so if it goes to an endgame, it doesn't really matter if Mamedyarov will be up a pawn. In a bishop of opposite colors, it's well, not very easy, but it is most often possible to hold that game to a draw. So here we have bishop to c3. Vassily says now, okay, capture my pawn. I'm going to play something like bishop e1, bring the queen to d2, go after your f2 pawn. So that's going to be my counterplay. And we have queen captures on a7. It's perfectly fine to capture this pawn. Bishop to e1, going after the f2 pawn. And now we have bishop to c6. Here, Mamedyarov had a chance. Here, he could have just played queen to a8, force a queen trade, and that's it. We go into captures, and yes, white is up a pawn, but I mean, you are never crossing the dark squares here, and it doesn't matter if you're up a pawn, it's just going to be a draw here. But instead, after bishop to e1, Mamedyarov said, okay, I'm probably going to be able to hold this to a draw whatever I play, so I'm just going to play bishop to c6, and now black has this very unpleasant choice of if he moves the queen away from the back rank, then I'm already attacking f7, I'm going to play bishop to e8, and it's going to be pretty troublesome for black to play this, and the queen still has to keep an eye on this pawn. I also have some plans of, well, if the bishop ever leaves this diagonal, maybe I can even sacrifice this pawn to start pushing this pawn. So there are options here. Black could maybe go wrong, but maybe white has already gone wrong. And, well, feel free to pause the video here and try to find the absolute best move for Vassily. Well, I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding a move that's most certainly is not easy to find. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's... No, it's not that. It's king to g7. King to g7, and now white has to deal with the very unpleasant reality of things that what is he even doing here? Because now you are preparing to move your queen, and white will not be able to do any maneuvering with checks along the back rank. And what move is there for white? So the problem is, if black just continued with something like queen to d2 here, going after this queen captures, you have this queen to b8 check, and then you can just easily shift the queen over to f4, and everything is nicely defended. For example, king here, even queen to e5 check, and if king f8, you can still play queen f4, the f2 pawn is defended, you're still up a pawn. But here Vassily played the ingenious king to g7, and I'm sure most of you, or maybe even all of you, did. King to g7, and now what can white play here? I mean, now queen to d2 will be deadly because the white queen cannot move with check, and you could try something. You could try queen to d7. This was played in the game, but there is the very tricky idea of bishop to e8. Here, Mamedyarov could have maybe sacrificed a piece, but although it looks very interesting, now queen captures on f7 is coming. It's a piece sacrifice, and then you capture here on b6, and now you have two connected passed pawns, which, well, usually is not only compensation, usually that's, you know, a means of achieving victory. However, here not so much, because after queen to e7 defending this pawn, there's really no good way for you to do anything, because if a5 you try to push this pawn to victory, queen to f6 now, going after f2, and there's no way of defending. Whatever you play is just game over. If you play f3, then you get this bishop g3, guarding these two squares, and queen to a1 will be checkmate. And if you try to run away with the king, just queen to b2, and now again you are faced with a very difficult choice of getting checkmated on this square or getting checkmated on this square. So it doesn't really matter. So here, it doesn't work. Like, maybe you could play it, but I mean, the simple idea of maybe just trying to push pawns will not work, and black will always be better. However, here queen to d7 was played. It makes sense, of course, you want to trade the queens, but now Vassily just plays queen to h4, and now the f2 pawn is under attack, and there's no way to defend it. That's the problem. If you go for something like f3, which you can, then comes bishop to f2 check, then this pawn falls, then all of a sudden you're just you know, getting destroyed here. Your position is terrible. So instead, after queen to h4, queen to d3 was played. Mamedyarov allows this capture. We have queen captures on f2 and now king to h2, but now bishop to d2. Again, Vassily goes for the absolute cleanest way of doing things. And now what do you do here? Really not much to even attempt. If you try something like e4, that's just bad. That just ends in checkmate, bishop f4 check, and that's it. You either have to give up the queen or you go king h1 and then queen to e1, queen f1, queen to f1 will be checkmate. So instead, after bishop to d2, we have a5, now trying to create a pass pawn here, but Vassily just ignores this. He plays bishop captures on e3. As you should. And now the problem is if a6, then we go into the exact same checkmating pattern that we've just seen. So Mamedyarov has to try something else. He plays queen to d1, guarding the back rank, but to no avail. Just b captures on a5. Now Vassily also creates a passed pawn, b6, and now bishop to f4 with check. King to h1, we have queen to g3, now threatening checkmate, and king to g1 now. We have h5, not worried about the passed pawn because both the bishop and the queen are covering the queening square. So b7 and now h4. We have queen to b1, kind of giving support to this b pawn, but I mean, it's still guarded twice. You can never push this pawn. So bishop to e5, preparing bishop to d4 check, and now queen back to d1. Mamedyarov can only wait and see what happens. Queen e3 check, and now king to h1. If king to f1, bishop g3 is checkmate. There's no way to defend against queen to f2 checkmate. If you try this to guard the checkmate this way, then queen to e1 is of course checkmate. So instead, after queen e3 check, king to h1 was played, but now queen back to f4, threatening checkmate and going after the c4 pawn. And there's nothing to do. King g1 avoids checkmate but runs into queen captures on c4. And there's no counterplay. Again, this is guarded. So here we have queen to e1 going after the bishop. Just queen to d4 check, king to h1, and now bishop to g3, putting more pressure on on white's position. Queen to f1 and now c4. Now Vassily also starts pushing his passed pawn. So bishop to e8 going after queen captures on f7, but it's not a problem, just f5. We have queen to b1, now with support of pushing this pawn, but just queen to d6. Again, both the queen and the bishop control the queening square. So bishop to a4, but now queen to b4, offering a queen trade, and there's really not much you can do here. The b pawn is also targeted. So queen to d1, guarding the bishop at least, and now not going after the pawn because you don't want to allow any counterplay to white, so just c3. Guarding the d4 square now with the queen, so there are no more interesting checks here. Queen to d7 was played, it does come with check, but king to h6. We have queen to d8 now, hoping for some back rank checking patterns, but bishop to e5, just guarding that square. We have b8 with queening. You have to play something, but just queen captures. You could go for bishop captures as well. It does allow white to go for some checks, but in the end you will still be safe. King g5, queen d8 check, you're going to do a full circle, king f4, queen captures with check, king e5, queen to e1 check, and now for example king f6, and there are no more useful checks here. So while that is possible, Vassily decided to do it without much thinking, so he just played queen captures. Now everything is nicely defended. Queen captures on h4 check, king to g7, and now queen e7 check, king to h8, and now what do you play? Queen captures on e6 was played, but there are no better moves. There's no useful check here, so queen captures on e6 was played, but now of course this runs into a very unpleasant checkmate in 2, and I don't have to tell you where it is because you see that the bishop is covering this square. So here Vassily just dropped his queen to b1. He played queen to b1 check, and it was in this position that Shakhriyar Mamedyarov resigned the game, as there was nothing more to be done here. It'd be better if it was queen to e1 check. I know you guys love that one, but it's queen to b1 check, so we can't always have it our way. So yeah, really a wonderful game. So it was pretty much a draw at that moment when we discussed here. Mamedyarov could have just forced a queen trade with queen to a8, but he wanted to grab a full point. He was up a pawn, he thought everything was safe, but this is just the kind of moment where you have to be super careful. You think, okay, you're up a pawn, you have a better position, you have a very active position. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, the worst thing that could happen is that you could blunder everything and lose the game, which is what happened here. Careful for that in your own games. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank George Chatsi Daniel Borisov, Kalim Mahmid, Nick Watson, and Henry Spraggins for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing the coverage of the Morphe saga, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.